Welcome to today's session. Today we are going to cover chapter number 2 in our exposition of the book of Genesis. Here the most important thing for us to note is that 1. God first made everything that there is in 6 days. And on the 7th day, he blessed the day and made it holy. On this day, he rested from all his works of creations. By this day, all that God had designed to create had been created, and his work had come into completion. But we see an important feature in God's creation when it comes to the creation of man. The Bible tells us that God created man and he breathed a breath of life in him. But most importantly again is that to ensure the comfort of man, he made all kinds of trees, all kinds of animals, pleasing to the eye and good to be able to provide food for man. But here, God established a law and a covenant between him and man. Actually, this forms the first covenant that God made with man. And he cautioned man that this covenant should not be broken. And the covenant was in the tree that is called the tree of knowledge, the tree of being able to determine what is good and what is evil. And so that man could heed the commandment, he told him that whenever he eats from that tree, he will surely die. This was a covenant that man was to keep and to ensure that his relationship with God was steadfast. This covenant, God made it as a law to govern the relationship and how man would relate with the nature that he created. God had put so much responsibility in man by giving him the powers over the creations that he had made. He had so much responsibility that when God looked at man, he purposed that man needed a helper. And to be able to give him a helper, God looked at all that he had created, and none actually qualified to be a helper to man. So God caused man to sleep, and as he was asleep, out of his rib, he created a woman. Now Adam, having been given the power over all the creations by God, and he had named all the creation, when he looked at the woman, he said, "This is now my flesh, the bones of my bone." And using the same capacity that God had given him, he named the creation woman. This is very important foundation for us, especially when we look at the institution of marriage. The Bible records that this is why a man would leave his father and mother and unite with his wife, and they shall become one flesh. The Bible presents to us an important theme in the creation story. And in this story, we get to understand many things that control life as we know it today. This actually forms the foundation why it is not possible for us to live our life for today or to look at the future without actually looking at the history of creation. I like one narration by Oliver Wendell Holmes. Wendell is an American jurist, and Wendell once stated that when I want to understand what is happening today or try to predict what will happen tomorrow, I look back. He closed his quote by saying that a page in history is worth volumes in logic. Meditating upon the Word of God, the Bible tells us that God then created man in his own image. We do not only display the design, the power, or the goodness of God. We are, in fact, his own image. This therefore means that God has put in us great abilities and capacity to be able to subdue the world and all his creation. We have been given that power, and therefore God created us in the original form with a power that is beyond what we can imagine. Besides that, he has also put in us the responsibility over his creation, so that we may be a pattern, we may be a guide, we may lead all the creations that he did. We are meant therefore to serve God and to serve his purpose ahead of anything that we do. Therefore, anytime we find ourselves that we are putting our purpose before the desires or the purpose for which God created us, then we are living outside God's purpose. Therefore, since we display the image of God, we must ensure that we are fruitful in the things that we do and in how we handle God's creation. No wonder man has been given the powers, and the things that we do today can demonstrate the power and the wisdom that God had actually put in us. If you look at the technological advancement, the quality of life that we lead today, the things that we are able to create to make life to be better are quite amazing. But besides that, there's an important aspect of relationship. God, in his creation, did not only purpose the relationship between man and him, he also purposed the relationship between man and fellow man. And therefore, it is very, very critical. Clearly, the reasons for creating a woman was because God had desired that man should have an helper. And in all his creation, he noticed that nothing could have given man a better helper than to create another being in the form of man. We can therefore not afford to live alone. We need God in our life, and we need people in our lives. We need companionship, and therefore we must demonstrate and be able to hold this together through love. The book of 1 John chapter number 4, verses 7 says, and I read, "Dear friend, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and therefore knows God." Therefore, love is a very, very critical aspect and part of why God created us. Therefore, despite the fact that God created us in his own image, he has given us also limits upon which we should be able to deal with nature and even to be able to deal with our fellow men. But utmost, our understanding is that God had created so much power in us. Jesus Christ demonstrated this power that God had created in us through the faith that we have as men. And in the book of Matthew, chapter number 17, verses 20, the word of God says, Jesus replied, "Because you have so little faith, truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. And nothing," and I'm repeating this, "nothing will be impossible for you." Therefore, the power that God has created in us, the power that God has given us, is so much that we can do so much in life. Thank you so much. Until next time, when we'll be looking at our chapter number 3. Stay blessed.